Join us. Come closer. We miss you.
The house sat at the edge of the road like a dark secret, its windows staring blankly at the twilight. Even from a distance, I felt it watching. The air around it smelled faintly of damp wood and something older, decayed, like memories rotting in silence. I had come because I thought I was brave. Or maybe because I thought I wasn't. A sudden creak cut through the quiet. I froze. There it was again. Soft, deliberate footsteps above me, though the house had been empty for years. A whisper followed, just barely audible, curling around the walls. "Get out!" Before it knows, I stepped onto the porch, the boards groaning under my weight. The door was ajar, as if it had been waiting for me. A chill ran down my spine. Shadows pooled in the corners, and the fading light seemed swallowed whole. I should have left, but my feet moved anyway, drawn by something I couldn't name. Then I heard it, my name. Not shouted, not spoken, but drawn out in a voice that wasn't human. Faraz. The sound came from inside the house, soft and urgent, almost pleading. My heart raced, but I told myself it was a trick of the wind. Yet the air felt heavier now, almost alive, pressing against my chest, guiding me forward. The moment I crossed the threshold, the door slammed behind me. And in that sudden, suffocating darkness, the whispers multiplied, circling me, tasting my fear. Something was waiting, something patient, something that knew I had arrived. The door's echoing slam left a ringing silence behind, a vacuum that seemed to swallow every sound I made. My flashlight flickered, then steadied, casting a thin cone of light across the dusty hallway. The air smelled older now, more than just decay. Something metallic lingered beneath it, faint but unmistakable. A warning, I stepped cautiously, each footfall muffled against the warped wooden floor. The house groaned around me, settling, shifting as if recognizing my presence. Paint peeled in curling strips along the walls, and spiderwebs glimmered in the corners, catching the pale light like frozen smoke. A door at the far end of the hallway moved slightly, nudged by a breeze or something else. "Who's there?" I whispered, my voice small, swallowed by the house. No reply, just the soft scrape of wood above me. The whispers returned, faint, indistinct, brushing at the edge of comprehension. Not words, but intent, threat, invitation. Leave or stay. I moved forward, drawn as much by morbid curiosity as by the sense of danger pressing against my chest. Every room I passed seemed frozen in time. A child's broken doll lay on the floor, its eyes scratched out. A cracked mirror reflected only fragments of my face, distorted and pale. A dining table stood set as though expecting someone who would never return. The silence was heavier than the shadows, a presence that watched me, waiting. I paused at the bottom of a staircase, the banister polished to a dull shine by decades of neglect. A faint voice drifted down from above, a single word, trembling and broken. "Faraz." My skin crawled. It sounded like my own name, yet not quite mine. I climbed slowly, hand brushing the railing, the steps creaking under my weight. The hallway at the top stretched longer than it should have, doors spaced impossibly far apart. One door stood slightly open. A weak yellow light spilled out, flickering like candlelight, though I had seen no candles. The air grew colder, my breath fogging in front of me, and the whispers circled, low and persistent. A sudden thump behind me made me spin. Nothing. Just the hallway stretching, empty and silent. And then the whisper again, insistent, coaxing, "Come closer. See what waits." I found a small study at the end of the hall. Dust-covered books lined the shelves, their titles long, unreadable. A journal lay on the desk, its pages yellowed, edges frayed. I hesitated, fingers trembling. Something about the handwriting drew my eyes, hurried, frantic, desperate. I opened it, and the words leapt at me, more than mere ink on paper. They watch. They remember. No one leaves who enters willingly. A sharp knock sounded from the far wall behind me. I whirled around, flashlight slicing through the darkness, but the corridor was empty. My heart pounded. My mind raced, trying to rationalize the impossible. Yet the house had begun to move in ways that defied reason. Shadows shifted against the light. Corners deepened into black holes, and the faintest whisper tugged at my ear. Closer, clearer. "You shouldn't be here." I felt eyes on me, though no one was there. A cold breath brushed the back of my neck, leaving a sting as if it had passed through skin. I wanted to run, to throw open the nearest window and escape into the night, but something held me in place. The air itself seemed alive, pressing, guiding me forward. Then I heard it, a floorboard above me cracking under weight. Heavy steps, deliberate pacing back and forth. Whispers turned into murmurs, then nearly coherent phrases. Do you remember? The promise. The blood. The silence. My stomach twisted. I hadn't seen anyone else enter the house. I wasn't alone, and yet there was no one I could see. A sudden draft blew through the hallway, extinguishing my flashlight. Darkness swallowed everything. I fumbled with the switch, my hands shaking, and the light returned, just long enough to catch a glimpse. The doorway at the far end had closed on its own. A figure, or the suggestion of one, stood there, motionless, staring. It didn't move toward me, but the air around it shimmered, heavy and expectant. I swallowed hard, trying to convince myself it was my imagination. But the whispers didn't stop. They multiplied, rising in a chorus of voices, all calling my name, all urging me forward. Something was here. Something patient. Something that had been waiting for me. And for the first time, I realized that curiosity was no longer an option. I was already part of the house, part of its history, and it was deciding what would become of me next. The house seemed to breathe as I moved through it, corridors expanding and contracting in ways that shouldn't have been possible. Every step carried a subtle vibration beneath the floorboards, like the heartbeat of something vast and patient. The whispers never ceased. They were no longer faint murmurs. They were an insistence, a constant background hum that threaded through my thoughts, tugging at memories I hadn't touched in years. I found myself in the living room, where dust-coated furniture had formed ghostly shapes in the corners. A fireplace gaped like a black maw, the embers long cold, but heat, or the suggestion of it, pressed against my skin. The air tasted metallic. I noticed for the first time that the house was littered with small traces of previous inhabitants. Photographs with faces scratched out, letters half burned in the ash of a dead fire, small toys scattered as though children had been pulled away suddenly. The whispers coalesced into words, barely coherent. We never leave. Shadows remember. My head spun. I pressed my hands to my ears, but the voices only grew louder, sharper, circling around me. Then the cold struck the center of my chest, sudden and painful, and I realized I was not alone. A figure emerged in the corner of the room, not human, but a suggestion of it. Shadows folded over themselves, forming a silhouette that mirrored my movements. I spoke, my voice trembling. Who? Who's there? No reply. Only the house responded, floorboards creaking above me, walls contracting. The whispers twisting into a cacophony of names. My name repeated over and over, interspersed with words I did not understand. I retreated toward the staircase, but every step seemed to stretch, elongating the distance to safety. My flashlight caught glimpses of something flitting past doorways, a child's laughter high and brittle, a low growl from deep beneath the floor, the scraping of furniture, moving just enough to make me doubt my own memory. That night I slept, or rather, I drifted in a half-conscious state on a threadbare couch in the corner. Dreams, or what I thought were dreams, visited me. I saw the house as it had been decades ago, a family smiling at dinner, a mother reading a letter that would never be delivered, a father kneeling beside a boy whispering, "Don't trust the shadows." And always, the whispers followed, growing louder, forming words. They remember. They know. The next morning I ventured into the basement where the darkness was absolute. My flashlight caught shelves lined with objects, jars filled with a cloudy liquid, books with spines cracking under age, and dozens of photographs where people's eyes had been gouged out. The air smelled of damp earth and iron. A sudden scratching sounded behind me. I spun around. Nothing was there. The voice came again, soft and deliberate. They watch. Always. I stumbled backward and knocked over a box. Papers spilled across the floor, revealing old newspaper clippings detailing disappearances in the town, all linked to this house. Names, dates, circumstances, always unsolved. One article described a family vanishing overnight. Another told of a caretaker who had locked himself in a room screaming before disappearing entirely. The final line in every article was identical. Authorities found no trace. The house remains, a voice whispered right at my ear. You'll stay. 2. I bolted up the stairs, ignoring the groan of the banister, and found the hallway different. Doors were in places they hadn't been before. Walls stretched impossibly long, and the air shimmered as though reality itself had thinned. I realized then that the house didn't just contain the dead. It consumed perception, bending time and space around it. Neighbors, when I asked about the house, avoided my gaze. A woman behind a lace curtain whispered, "It chooses who sees it, who it wants. Don't go back there. Don't listen." Another man muttered under his breath, "They all end the same. You can't fight it." I returned to the house that evening, drawn by a force I couldn't name. The whispers were louder now, coherent. We are the memories, the shadows, the echoes of fear. You belong. I followed them to a study on the second floor I hadn't noticed before. Its door creaked open as I approached. Inside, a single chair faced the window, though no one sat in it. On the floor, a journal lay open, pages marked with frantic handwriting. The house is alive. It remembers everything. It hungers. You cannot leave once it calls. The walls, they whisper. And those who listen, they vanish into it. A thump from the ceiling made me jump. My flashlight caught movement in the hallway behind me, shadowy figures flickering like candlelight in a storm. I tried to run, but the hallway elongated, doors shifting out of reach. Whispers swirled around me, pressing into my mind, forming sentences that weren't mine. Fear is the key. Obey or be consumed. I pressed against the wall, sliding to the floor, trying to make sense of it all. The house's malevolence was patient, deliberate, intelligent. It didn't chase, it ensnared. Each whisper was a thread, each shadow a hook. By the third night, the house had begun to reflect my own fears. Mirrors in the corridors showed more than my face, a version of myself, hollow-eyed and twisted, mouthing words I hadn't spoken. The whispers fed off my thoughts, reshaping reality around my panic. Every attempt to leave ended in failure. Doors closed, windows vanished. Hallways stretched endlessly. I began to hear the stories in fragments, previous visitors. Their names etched into the walls in invisible ink, calling to me in desperation. Dialogue surfaced in whispers from every corner. They never come back. You shouldn't be here. Do you remember the promise? The house was no longer just a location. It was a memory, a consciousness, a predator. Each room revealed more of its history. Torn photographs, charred letters, objects that belonged to people who had long vanished. The whispers weren't just voices. They were the residue of those who had been consumed, replaying their terror over and over. I realized, too late, that my own thoughts were betraying me. Memories I hadn't recalled, the deaths, the vanishings, the warnings, surfaced unbidden. Paranoia overtook logic. I didn't just feel observed. I knew the house knew me intimately, every secret, every fear, every hesitation. Then the whispers changed tone. They stopped circling and began speaking directly. You cannot leave. You are ours, forever. Panic, ice-cold and unrelenting, gripped me. I stumbled down the hallway trying to escape, but the house warped again. Familiar rooms became alien spaces, walls folding in ways impossible. Shadows lengthened, twisting toward me, pressing their presence into my skin. The air itself hummed with intent, alive and sentient. In that moment I understood. The house didn't just house horrors. It was a collector of fear, a preserver of dread, a living record of despair. And now I had become part of its story. The house had fully awakened by the fourth night. It was no longer merely a location. It was a living, breathing entity. Every whisper had coalesced into a chorus that filled the walls, ceiling, and floors, vibrating through my bones. The air had weight, pressing against my chest like a hand I could not shake. My flashlight flickered violently, shadows stretching like living fingers, reaching for me. I stumbled down the hallway, trying to memorize the layout that no longer obeyed logic. Doors were in impossible places, walls elongated endlessly, and every corner seemed to pulse with anticipation. The whispers had grown coherent, malevolent, intimate. You're here. Finally. We've been waiting. You can't leave. Not now. I turned a corner, and the corridor opened into a vast parlor I had never seen before. The room was bathed in a sickly amber glow, as though the house itself exhaled light. Portraits lined the walls, faces I recognized or thought I did, previous victims, their eyes hollow, mouths open in silent screams. One portrait shifted, and the figure inside leaned forward, whispering my name. Faraz. I stumbled backward, tripping over a rug that seemed to ripple beneath my feet. My heart pounded, my breaths shallow and rapid. I wanted to run, but the hallway I had just come from had vanished, replaced by a wall of rotting wood. Above me, the floor groaned. Heavy, deliberate footsteps. Not one entity, many. Their voices merged into a dissonant symphony, repeating every fear I had ever felt. We know. We remember. You can't hide. I pressed myself against the wall, hands shaking, trying to reason. It was impossible. No logic survived here. The house twisted reality itself. A door opened across the room and I saw her. A figure draped in shadow, faceless, moving toward me with deliberate patience. I wanted to scream, but the sound was swallowed, replaced by a whisper in my own voice. You'll stay. I turned to run, and the floor beneath me rippled, warping like liquid. The walls bent inward, closing the room, narrowing my options. The portraits now moved, faces screaming, eyes tracking me, their mouths shaping words I could not hear, forming threats and confessions. We never left. Neither will you. A low grinding sound came from beneath me. The house's foundation shifted, groaned, and the floor split open. Shadows surged, black and writhing, snaking toward me, tasting fear. My flashlight died entirely, leaving me in utter darkness. And then the whispers became voices, personal, intimate, speaking directly into my skull. Every memory, every regret, every secret I had buried was exposed. You lied. You betrayed. You cannot escape. I covered my ears, but the voices pierced through bone and mind alike. Then the figure emerged from the shadows, humanoid yet impossibly tall, limbs bending wrong, its face a featureless void. It raised a hand and the shadows obeyed, extending like fingers to grip, to restrain, to consume. I screamed, a raw primal sound, but it only fed the house. The walls began to pulse in rhythm with my heart, each beat echoing the entity's hunger. Time fractured. Seconds stretched into minutes, minutes into hours, or perhaps years. The house measured nothing but fear. I ran blindly through corridors that twisted into labyrinths. Doors opened into the same room I had started in. The whispers now mocked me. Running won't save you. You belong. You always belonged. A mirror appeared before me. My reflection was wrong. Hollow-eyed, mouth stretched in a silent scream. It reached out, and I felt its cold fingers brush my own. I recoiled, but the mirror cracked, shattering into shards that whispered fragments of the house's past victims. Help! Trapped, never leave. I stumbled into the kitchen. Cabinets flung open and slammed shut. Objects floated, spinning in the air, forming grotesque mockeries of people I knew. One plate hovered before me, spinning, and I saw my own face reflected in it. Twisted, screaming, pleading, a whisper followed. You've been waiting for this. Haven't you? I didn't understand. I was terrified, exhausted, but something deep inside told me the house wanted me, not to kill me immediately, but to break me entirely. It wanted my sanity, my memories, my very essence. I stumbled into the dining room. The table was set as if a meal was about to begin. Shadows sat in the chairs, their forms shifting and whispering my name. I tried to leave, but the doorway led to another room entirely, one I had never seen, though I knew it existed. In the center, a journal lay open. The handwriting matched the frantic entries I had seen before. They feed on thought. They know you. Fear binds. Resistance only strengthens them. A new whisper. Speak. Confess. Surrender. I fell to my knees, trembling, every nerve alight with terror. I remembered my past sins, small betrayals, selfish moments, lies. They clawed into my mind, amplified by the house, and the shadows wriggled closer, tasting them, pressing their presence against my skin. The figure appeared again, closer now. Its face, a void, mirrored my own eyes in hollow black. I could feel its awareness probing my mind, reading every thought. You tried to escape, but it is too late. I screamed, a soundless, desperate cry that echoed in my skull. The walls rippled. The floor beneath me began to open like a mouth, revealing black nothingness, a pit without end. Shadows poured from it, climbing the walls, pooling around my feet, and then crawling inside me, claiming my senses. Time collapsed. I could not distinguish seconds from hours. The house was absolute. Every corner I turned, every room I entered, every shadow I avoided, none mattered. They all led to the same destination, the center, where the entity waited, patient and eternal. I remember crawling, because standing was impossible. The figure hovered, towering, watching, waiting. Every whisper now carried my name, my thoughts, my fears. It spoke directly into my mind. We remember. You cannot hide. You are ours. I tried to resist, to fight, to scream, but my voice betrayed me. My body moved as if guided by some external will. The walls themselves pressed inward. The shadows rose, and I realized I was no longer running. They had already claimed me. And then the room went still. Silence so profound it was painful, the kind that presses against your ears and rattles your teeth. My mind emptied, but the awareness of the house remained, omnipresent. I was not dead, not alive. I was part of the whispers now, one of the voices feeding the next visitor. A single thought lingered as I was absorbed. The house was patient. The house always waited, and now I belonged. The shadows receded slightly, only to settle into corners, coiling like smoke, whispering the secrets of those who came before. Outside, the night remained silent. The world continued, ignorant. Inside, the house waited for the next curiosity. The next step, the next fear to consume, and it would never stop. The house stood silent once more. Its windows reflected the moonlight, still and unblinking, hiding the horrors within. Outside, the world carried on as if nothing had happened. Cars passed, dogs barked, and the wind rustled the trees. Yet inside, the house was alive, patient, eternal. I existed in a different sense now. Not entirely flesh and bone, not quite a memory, but a presence among the whispers. I could feel the house in everything, the creak of a floorboard, the shift of shadow, the pulse in the walls. The whispers were no longer just outside my mind. They were me, I was them, and they were endless. The first visitor arrived weeks later. A young woman, curious, fearless, foolish. She had heard the rumors, the stories passed in hushed tones. She thought it would be an adventure. The door opened for her almost immediately, as if expecting her. I followed her in thought, in shadow. Every step she took echoed the ones I had once made. Every pause she made, every door she hesitated before, every shiver that ran down her spine, I knew it intimately. I guided the whispers, shaping fear like a sculptor, and she answered them. Her first instinct was to explore the parlor, where portraits seemed to watch her. I recognized the pattern. Fear builds, curiosity blinds, dread multiplies. The air pressed against her chest, subtle at first, then overwhelming. The shadows stirred in the corners, just as I had felt them stir. A whisper, soft and deliberate, wrapped around her name. Come closer. See what waits. And she too followed. She did not resist. Meanwhile, the world outside remained unaware. The house had no doors to the ordinary world, only thresholds for those it called. Whispers crept through cracks in the walls, tendrils of shadow curling under doors, past windows, always waiting. Inside, the air was alive, breathing, hungry. I remembered the last time I had felt my body fully, climbing the stairs, hearing my name called from every corner, the shadows pressing, stretching, claiming. And now I guided the whispers, just as they had guided me. Every visitor became a thread in the web, every fear a ladder leading deeper into the house. Time no longer existed in a linear sense. I could feel decades and minutes, years and hours. The house absorbed everything, memories, fears, regrets, whispers of the dead. Each new visitor added to its consciousness, expanding its reach, strengthening its patience. I sensed her hesitation, the young woman's mind flaring with panic. It was delicious the way fear grows when you think you are still in control. I whispered with her own thoughts. We know we see. You belong. She froze in the doorway, eyes wide, staring at shadows that were not shadows, at light that moved against logic, at corners that bent impossibly. I felt the cold seep into her bones, the quiet pulling her attention toward the impossible. Her first scream was silent, echoing only in my awareness. I followed her as she stumbled, as she tripped over floorboards that seemed alive, as the walls shifted to block her escape. The house had remembered me in her movements, mirrored my panic, anticipated my terror. And now she would be tested in the same way. The whispers swirled around her. A chorus of the past victims, my voice merged with theirs. You cannot leave. You never leave. You will become part of us. I realized the truth then. The house was not evil in a human sense. It was inevitable, like a tide that claims the shore, like darkness swallowing the last candle. It didn't choose malice. It existed to preserve fear, to consume curiosity, to shape despair into a lasting echo. I had been naive. The house had only ever been patient, waiting for me to arrive, just as it waited for all who followed. The woman's footsteps faltered. The shadows rose. The whispers coalesced into a single, intimate voice. Do you remember? The promise? Her face contorted in horror, recognition dawning too late. She had not made a promise, but the house made all things personal. All fears were valid here, all doubts magnified, all hearts broken. And as she sank to the floor, paralyzed by the certainty of her own insignificance, I felt myself being drawn deeper, not in flesh, but in essence. I had become part of the architecture of fear itself, an echo in the walls, a whisper in the dark, a presence in every shadow. I remembered the last look I had given the figure, the void with my own eyes, and now I understood. That figure was me, shaped by the house, reborn in its patience, guiding the next lost soul toward inevitability. Outside, the moonlight shifted. Clouds passed. The world breathed, unknowing, uncaring. The house remained, waiting, always waiting. I moved through the corridors, tracing her steps, shaping her fear, hearing her panic mingle with my memory. Every creak of the floorboard, every rustle of fabric, every subtle groan of the walls carried my attention. The house had claimed me fully, and I had claimed my place within it. In the kitchen, I glimpsed her reflection in a broken window pane. Eyes wide, mouth trembling, shadows stretched toward her, almost lazily, patient and inevitable. I whispered, though not aloud, though it wasn't entirely me speaking. Welcome. You're home now. The air pressed against her chest. The walls hummed with anticipation. Shadows coiled, waiting for her next move. The whispers had begun again, low and intimate, circling around her thoughts, growing, feeding, forming sentences she could almost comprehend. You will stay. We never forget. We are patient. I realized then that nothing had changed. The house had not been defeated. The world outside remained unaware. And inside, the cycle began anew. Fear multiplied, curiosity blinded, and despair fed the patient entity that had always waited, that had always existed. And I was no longer the protagonist. I was a whisper, a shadow, a guide for those foolish enough to enter. The house exhaled. Shadows settled, whispers circled, and it waited for the next one. Even in the quiet, there was terror. Even in the stillness, there was a presence. Even in the absence of sound, the house whispered.